Good morning, Ostrava. Are you awake this morning? Good. Otherwise, I would play piano for 15 minutes, and believe me, you don't want me to do that. Oops. This was inside. In music, polyphony is a combination of voices or instruments playing at the same time. This particular combination is the one that brings the coherence and gives the melodic blend to the music. If one voice or if one instrument plays its own part, forgetting about the other voices or about the other instruments, then the music becomes dissonant. Means it loses its coherence and it loses the melody. Working in community-based development or in local development is a little bit like trying to build an orchestra that would try to achieve some polyphony. Basically, you bring together local stakeholders and you try to achieve this polyphony by making people play along, play together. And if one of the stakeholders starts playing its own strategic agenda and forgets about the other stakeholders locally, then dissonance starts and polyphony is lost. Basically, we lose the melody, and sometimes we can lose the whole orchestra because it dissolves. We're here today to share with you our experience of 4 years trying to play a polyphony in a neighborhood of the city center of Lisbon, which is called Mouraria. We brought, thanks to the TEDxOstrava team, 2 voices of this polyphony. Nuno will talk on behalf of the residents of the neighborhood. I will talk on behalf of the NGOs. So this is basically an image of our local orchestra. But before to start that, I will try to explain how I got involved in this project. And I'll say a little bit of my background and how I learned and how I got interested in local development. Basically, when I was a boy, I used to live in Algeria. By the age of 12, I got expelled from school. Of course, my parents didn't like it very much. My father went to meet the headmaster of the high school in order to understand why his son was expelled from school. The answer was unexpected. At that time, Algeria was struggling economically because of the downturn of the prices of the oil, which is the main resource of the country. So when oil prices went down, Algeria started struggling economically, and the International Monetary Fund got involved. Financially, it had to implement what we call structural reforms, austerity programs. Well, I think we're all familiar with this kind of vocabulary now in Europe. So cuts were implemented in every budget, and education budget was one of them. When the cuts were implemented at national level, of course it had after that an impact at regional level. And after the impact at regional level, then it came to local level. And the local responsible for implementing the cuts, basically the local responsible for this academy where I used to live, had a very interesting way of implementing the cuts. See, my name is Mourad Ghanem, which is said Mourad Ghanem in Arabic, which means my last name starts by the letter Ghan, which basically is the letter number 19th in terms of alphabetical order. So the local responsible basically explained to my father that this was the methodology to implement the cuts in terms of budgeting the education at local level for this local academy. So the ones who would have a name that starts by a letter before the one you could see over the red line would get an education, and the other ones who were below wouldn't. So this is an example of a very efficient day of work of the people at local level. So what happened then is I was little, I was a boy, but I started thinking about the sequence. Wait a minute. So oil price goes down at global level. Then Algeria struggles at economical level. Then it implements financial cuts in education. Then it implements financial cuts at regional level. Then it implements financial cuts at local level. I don't go to school. So somehow, if you said that to the other kids, it would be like, well, let's check out the oil price forecast to know if I go to school tomorrow or not. Yeah. What the other element that this gave me by that time was basically this was like my first geopolitical training. And it was even a global training, because how global events impact life of individuals, of people, and their potential, because this is education and this is mid-long-term capacity building. And I would say this also brought me another idea, which was the importance of local governance, because this red line is local governance. It's a decision made at local level and how it impacts the potential of the people. Many years later, when I was taller and handsome, I went to Portugal and started working in a neighborhood called Mouraria. Mouraria starts with an M. It's the letter number 13th in the alphabet. At that time, in 2008, 2009, austerity programs also started to be implemented in Portugal, with cuts in many, many ministries. And this had also an impact on people's life at local level. I brought here with me today Nuno, who is a resident and who's been implicated in the program from the beginning, also to give you his word on his neighborhood and on the issue.
Okay, my father and my grandfather were both born in Mouraria. I live in the same house of my father. My grandfather rent in 1911. 3 generations of my family lives in this house and in this neighborhood. Mouraria, it's a very beautiful place, plenty of history. We have 6,500 persons living in Mouraria altogether. We have people from China, people from India, people from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, and from many other countries in the world, people from Africa and people from Brazil, all together without problems. We have 9 different religions in our neighborhood, and our neighborhood is a little bit small, it's not so big. The history of our neighborhood, it's very, very interesting. The Moorish comes in 710. And after the Christians conquer Lisbon to the Moorish in 1147. Dom Afonso Henriques, the first king of Portugal, put the Moorish inside walls. You remember castles? Imagine castles. Big walls, and the Moorish are inside because they are afraid of the rest of the Moorish people who stays in the place of Lisbon. By that, the history resumes. We are a defeated place, forgotten centuries and centuries for everyone. I take some paper because I'm not a properly TED speaker. And I want to say some more things. 7 years ago, we began a big project in Mouraria because we have several problems. Drug dealers, prostitution, unemployment, old people alone, young people who quit the school, domestic violence, old and abandoned houses, chaotic parking, no yards, inexistent playgrounds, many homeless, and several other problems. You can imagine the first good playground in Mouraria is made last year, and we are in the 21st century. The man goes to the moon, and Mouraria only last year, they have the first playground for children. By that, we begin a movement. Me and another person, Inês Andrade, it's my friend. One day, we are taking a beer and speaking about our neighborhood, and we begin to think we need to do something. It's not good. It's not enough. We need to fight. And we go to all the reunions of the municipality. The municipality, they do open reunions in Lisbon, and we go to all the reunions and we speak in front of the mayor and in front of all the people, and we say, we need something to Mouraria. Don't forget Mouraria. Try to help Mouraria, help us. And the mayor, they heard us, and they make a candidature, and they make two programs, two European programs. One, work public in the streets, 25 streets and squares of Mouraria now are very nice for the people who live there and for you if you come visit us. More, we have a social program with 70 associations and organizations together, working together. So we have one association who work with poor people. We have another associations work with unemployment and many things. We have no time. We are two. It's not fair. I only want to say something to you. I am a communitary mediator. I work all the days in the field, in the streets, without the people. I visit the buildings, I visit the persons, I'm walking the streets, and I try to help people, and we win this battle.
Well, to continue, just trying to characterize and modelize what we tried to do, which, well, this was particular of this approach. when we started, we tried to look at the horizon of 2020, which is not so usual, either politically or either for NGOs, because third sector always struggles, never have resources or means, and usually just look to the short term, to what's immediately visible. We're always taking care of the tasks, and we never have time to plan. So that was somehow a unique approach in this process, because we really tried to build a structure, a networking and intermediation structure between the stakeholders. Then we worked on the third sector capacity building, and then for the future we hope we will be able to have an incubation for social projects. I will just show some pictures of the process. Basically, this is a physical, a tangible notion of the networking we've built in 2013. We just brought the people together and started to count the partnerships so we would modelize our network. So this is a first representation of our local network, and we really insisted on this thing because once the municipality would fade out from the project, as it always happens, usually in every project, people gather for the project, for the time of the project, a strategic group of the project is built, but the strategic group then dissolves at the end of the project. So we really took care of this network issue so it could continue and get along with the process, even though the project of the municipality finishes. This is a representation of the interinstitutional network we have at the moment. It means at the moment 15 NGOs, each one working in a different area, all together in the network. We called our network bairros, which means neighbourhoods in Portuguese. Bairros starts with the letter B, which is the second letter of the alphabet. Capacity building for NGO has been a very, very strong challenge for us, because usually the NGOs are really micro. They have little resources, even in terms of human resources. It's a lot of volunteer work, and usually there is no money for training, and there is no money for capacity building. So we've been insisting in getting funding for this capacity building through training, mentoring, consulting, hundreds of hours of capacity building for the NGOs. And then this is our project for the future. We've been designing an incubator that would help local development projects. Usually there are a lot of incubators that are very trendy, but they usually don't really focus on the territory they're in. So that would be our design of an incubator, which would focus not only on every project, but we will take into account the local aspect and the relationship with the territory. This is an example of services that we imagined for our incubator. And actually it's funny because most of these resources, sorry, this is in Portuguese, but the icons I will explain, most of the resources are local. You can get to Lisbon, you get a training in capacity building for your NGO or for your local network. Then you have a training in collective leadership, because this question is very essential, how to build a collective leadership instead of a personal leadership. An open space that we would organize also in the territory, which is a very, very powerful tool in order to start planning. Then strategic planning with the NGO. Then this is the interpretation service. This is how you host it. Basically, it's the roof and the food, which is also part of the network. And this is the guided visits that that Nuno basically implements. He would lead you through the neighborhood for the guided visit. And this is the international partnership with Mouraria. So this is an example of service that we thought about, that we could implement in between neighborhoods, and only with local resources. Everything is there. This is a good question. Is it a success story? I don't know. What we know is that, of course, we gathered a lot of media attention in the past 4 years. Monocle is a paper from the University of Harvard, but we had all the international newspapers on the ground for the last 3 years, all of them. And this is a little Google trend on the answers on internet about our neighborhoods, basically the word Mouraria, this is the result. So my last word would be about what we could get out of this initiative. I think really, even if the municipality fade out of the process, what's really important to get out of this process is that local governance is really important and it has a major impact. So
I only want to say something. Give me only 1 minute because we come from Portugal. It's so far, so far. When we begin with nothing. No money, not a place to work. We have the reunions in the streets. We have the reunions in the middle of the squares. And I believe even we have no money, even we have some problems, we can go in front and we can go doing the things because we need to have a good heart, to be creative. Imagine, yes, we can.
Thank you very much.